Okay, so good morning. So today we have an important and special session. Can you hear me? Okay, is this better? Okay, we have an important and special session this morning. You met David Harris earlier in the week. I know David is currently the vice chair of ISGAP and served as the director of AJC for 30-odd years and spent 50 years in the organized Jewish community, really as one of its top international leaders. And to his left is Juju, I'll say his wife, Giulietta Boukhobza, I didn't mispronounce it, who happens to be David's wife. Was born in Libya, and they're going to discuss an important story about issues of anti-Semitism, what was happening in the Islamic world, which is not often discussed, and it's appropriate for today's discourse during the next 2 weeks of our summer institute about jihad and the acceptance of the other and anti-Semitism. So she was born and raised in Libya, and together with her parents and 7 siblings, they had to flee Libya in 1967 after that series of deadly pogroms which targeted the Jewish community, and many, I know, fled to Italy. And Giulietta and her family found refuge in Italy and eventually moved to the United States in 1979, where she raised 3 children and taught Italian and art. She and her husband, David Harris, lives in New York, and I think we're really grateful that you're here today. So please welcome both.
Good morning, everyone. Just for the record, we did this before Michelle and Barack did their husband and wife show. We began, I guess, 3 years ago when ISGAP invited us to sort of deviate a bit from the more scholarly approach to subject matter and talk on a much more personal level about a story, as Charles said, that's not well known. Maybe we'll explore why it's not as well known as perhaps some other stories. And before turning to my wife, I just want to admit to one quandary in my own life. Had she not been a refugee escaping from an Arab country, I never would have met her. So the question for me is, should I be grateful to Libya for expelling the Jews, or as a Jew, should I be angry at Libya for expelling the Jews? But 3 children, 3 children-in-law, and 8 grandchildren later, I know where I stand on the subject. So I know I'll call her Juju because that's the diminutive we use. Before we go forward, I know you have a question or two for the audience.
Yes, actually, I would like to know by thing of hand, how many, I would like to know.
Wait, 1 second, Susan.
Hello, hi, I am Giulietta Boukhobza. This is my husband. Hope he knows. Anyway, I would like to know by a show of hand how many in this room know that there were Jews in the Arab country, and how many of you know how many were expelled or killed? Oh, good. My job is a little bit easier than I thought.
Okay.
Okay.
So this is all very personal, so let's begin at the beginning. Juju, what are your earliest memories of life in Libya, family and otherwise?
My early memories is interesting. It is interesting because all the Jews lived in Tripoli, which was the capital, And my family, mother, father, 8 children, were the only one that lives in Misurata. Misrata, a place that was never known until all the problems started with Gaddafi, and Misrata was all over the news. So we were the only Jewish family. We went to Catholic school. We always knew we were Jewish, but I knew all the Christian prayers because it was the only school. And then at the age of 8, my family moved to Tripoli. Oh, thank you. My family moved to Tripoli to join the other people. The memories I have were always to be careful. That you know you were safe until you were not safe anymore. That they knew you were Jewish. You could deny that you were Jewish, but you could not wear paraphernalia that showed that you were Jewish. So we always know that we are a second or third class group of people. And that is how life continued. But in everyday life, I think my childhood was like everybody else, except for this little minute particular.
But Jewish life in Libya began long before you were born. In fact, some people like to talk about settler colonialism. So how far back do Jews go, and how far back do Arabs in Libya go?
Yeah, it's very interesting because we, the Jews, lived in Libya with the Berbers. The Berbers were there. And then, so we lived for, what would you, centuries, millennia?
Well, as I understood it, on your father's side, he believes they date back to the Roman era, when Jews were distributed around the Mediterranean. And on your mother's side, from the Spanish Inquisition, they had an indirect route but landed in Libya, so either for millennia or for centuries.
But basically, we were there before the Libyans, the Arabs who basically conquered Libya. So we were in a place that we conquered, which is very funny now hearing about people talking about
Settler colonialism and occupation.
Yeah, and occupation and everything, where we lived in an occupied land. And then when the moment came, we were thrown out.
Now, some in the Arab world try to make the case that everything was perfect until Israel was reborn. So the original sin was actually Israel's rebirth. But you suggest that life was not perfect before 1948. And your parents and grandparents can attest to that, right?
In fact, it's interesting. My father is one of 9. And by the time I was born in 1951, there were only 3 out of the 9. They all escaped to Israel. There were these boats that they were, come si dice, like hidden boats, and the Jews used to escape there to go to Israel.
So, interestingly, Juju, by 1948, the roughly 39,000 Jews in Libya, all but about 5,000 Jews left. Certainly by 1951, the year you were born, which is the year that Libya was born as an independent country. Why did those Jews leave, including your uncles and aunts, and why did you stay? Why did your family stay?
Well, unfortunately, my parents are dead, and I never had the chance to ask them. But my suspicion is that they really believe that the new Libya will be democratic. They were promised them a lot of things, and by the time they realized that none of it was true, was too late. And it was very, very difficult to leave, because what they did is one member of the family or 2 members of the family had to stay. So basically you were a prisoner there. You could not just take your family and your children and move.
So in the end, you stayed till 1967, by which time you were 16 plus years old. And 67 was the transformative year in your family's life. What happened?
Yeah. So basically, as I said, we lived there what for us was normal. We thought we lived the normal, like I'm sure if you talk to many people, and maybe there are some in this room who lived in a dictatorship, because you don't know what freedom is, you think that the freedom you have under a dictator is good, or relatively good. So we lived there, we knew we were Jews, we knew that the police would not protect us, we knew that if something happened, we just had to defend ourselves. But then during the Six-Day War in 1967, maybe a month before, while things were moving, things started being very, very bad in Libya, and we were very conscious of it. By the way, another thing that I want to say about Libya, which makes me so upset about all the girls that they were prisoners with Palestinians, the girls that they were raped, the girls that were mutilated, that the problem with Jews in an Arab country, we had a double problem. We had a problem, once, that we were Jewish, and two, that we were women. I remember from the age that I could understand, and I didn't know what sex was, I saw, forgive me, more men,
Groping.
not just groping, but showing themselves.
Exposing.
Exposing. I saw men exposing themselves to us. I was groped. My breasts were touched even before they started being formed. My bottom was touched. And the funny thing is, and this is the anger and the frustration, because the women were forced to wear the burqa, with the Libyan Jews was different, with the Libyan Muslim were different. Is like they used to have this thing and only one eye. They conceive with only one eye. So they had to cover their wife, and us, not only we were their sexual object, but they were angry. So while they touch you and grope you, they called you whore, prostitute, infidel. Why do you wear like that? So they enjoy the fact that, of course, we wouldn't wear miniskirt or anything, but we would go the way we are. So for them, they enjoyed us, but they enjoyed us, but they hated us for it. So there was this thing. And you knew, and I never forget that I had a friend, I made a friend from Greece, and she came with her free mentality. Her parents had a job in Libya or whatever, and I never forget, one day I was walking with her in the street, and somebody grabbed her tangat. She was more formed than me, so they went after her, and she started screaming at them, and I never forget. I hold her, I put her in the first store, and I say, just shut up. She said, but they touch me, they can never do that in Greece. I said, this is not Greece. Just go home and pretend it's nothing, because we knew that there was nothing we can do against them. So, did that the question? Sorry, I forget. That's why I need him.
In fact, I remember from early days of our knowing each other, you told me that even going swimming.
Oh my God, I never learned how to swim.
Because when you went to Libya is on the Mediterranean, that boys could come from under the water.
And they touch you and they try to remove your baby.
So she was afraid to go swimming. We were in London, and we wanted to go to the ULU pool, the University of London Union pool, and I would go and my wife would not go, and I couldn't understand why initially. And this was the reason. She was still afraid that someone would come from under the water.
But why I'm saying that is because what upsets me now, I mean, I think some people maybe read that when America left Afghanistan and these poor women lost their freedom and they were back to the Taliban. I remember I couldn't sleep the whole night, and then I wrote a piece. Is that what to me is inconceivable is the fact that the West doesn't understand, that the women freedom, the women movement doesn't understand that they're defending these people who, I'm sorry, they're primitive. Is a culture that has two of the biggest sins. They don't respect other culture, they don't respect other religion, but mostly they do not respect women. And the moment a society does not respect women, that society has to change completely or whatever. And this is what me and my sister and all my friends lived through for I left when I was 16, so as I say, I was formed, or as I say, I was malformed, because you take this in your shoulder all your life.
And maybe El Shaddai, later we can find the article, because I still remember in the middle of the night, my wife starting to write the op-ed because of, through tears, of what was happening to Afghan women when the Taliban returned with, unfortunately, American acquiescence. And it's a piece that was very heartfelt, very heartfelt. Let's come back to 1967. So you said a month before the June War, you already began to feel something in the air.
Oh yeah, like the
Let's go through what happened.
Yeah, so the way I remember it, I wasn't following all what's going on in Israel and in Egypt. I wasn't following what I was going in Israel, Egypt, whatever. I was just living at the age of 16 what was going on in my own city, in my own life. And I remembered we were all very nervous, we were all very scared. Jews started calling each other on the phone. And school will open one day, close another day, open one day. I remember walking, we tried to leave the house as little as possible, but I still remember some scenes like going out with my sister and seeing all these young Arab boys that usually will just touch us. This time instead they will do it like this. We are going to slaughter you. And so we tried to be home. And then the day of the war.
June 5th?
I remember we all stayed home, and we had a house with the garden, and I remember this invasion of people. And I always say there could have been 100, there could have been 1,000, there could have been 50. And they were there, and they literally wanted to burn us alive, because they took matches and they were trying to burn the house. And my mother, who we always said she was raised by the Taliban, she so much knew that mentality. She's really a Jew by mistake. She was an Arab in many ways. No, in a positive way. She understood them. She was raised by them. And my mother did something very smart. She pushed my father and asked for girls. And now I understand. It took me years, because
when you say pushed, meaning pushed them
us
away.
She hid us.
And confronted the mob.
And confronted the mob only with the 4 little ones, because we were 8. At the time we were, you see, I used to say my parents had no TV, so they just produced kids. When this happened, we were 17, 16, 15, and 14. The 4 big ones, and then there were the 2 boys and 2 girls, the little one. So she confronted these people with the 4 little ones. And she said, we don't care about Israel, we are Jews by, she was ready to sell whatever. We are Jews only by name, we are your brothers, whatever. And my mother always said this phrase that we all sister, we repeat. And she said, like a miracle, they all took the cherino.
The match.
The match, and they put it back in the box and they closed it. And one thing that is still, is like, I don't even know if I ever told you that. There was a guy with them who used to work for my father, an Arab. And he was with the group that came to us. And he was saying, no, don't do it, don't do it. And for many years, and then he disappeared. I'll tell you why. And for years I was wondering, why was he with them? Was he planning to then come back? So I don't know, but for my mother, he was a hero. Anyway, so we were saved by them, but we knew that by then they did the curfew. The king decided, so they did the curfew. We called some other Jews, and we discovered that some family were killed. Basically what they did, they went there, they said, come, we'll take you to safety, and they killed them. And it's interesting, later on, the internal minister.
Minister of the Interior, right?
Who happened to be a friend of ours, we met him in Rome after we were saved, and he said that he was the one that went to this forest and he saw all these bodies, raped, mutilated, and a body of a child and dolls. To show you, they took them, they told them, we take you to safety, and they murdered them. What happened to us is, again, my mother, we had a good friend, an Arab, Abdelhamid Beyderna, a wonderful guy. Bey means, Bey is like count or something of Derna. Derna is a place. And my mother called him and he said, Abdelhamid, you have to come and take us. And by then there was the curfew, so he sent his driver, and we all dressed like Arabs. We all dressed and we went to his house. And this is where, you know, like the French say, the more things change, the more remain the same. And about what is happening now with the lies, with the thing. So we are there, tell me if you don't, we are there staying at this friend, and my mother and all of us girls, we were in the women's side. And my father was in the men's side. So we were there just listening to this small radio in Arabic. My father was on the other side listening, because we had at the time the BBC, the Wilus, I don't know what the thing.
Wheelus Air Force Base was the American Air Force Base in Libya, and they had a radio.
They had their own thing. We had the Italian thing. So my father had his TV, like men listening, and we were listening to the Arab radio. So after maybe 4 or 5 days, I managed to go. Actually, they did them. I was a child, even though I was 16. I managed to go to the other side of the house to talk to my father. And I said, and he said, how are you doing? And I said, well, Mama is crying all the time. And he tells me, why? We are safe. And I said, because she's hearing from the Arab radio that basically Israel was completely destroyed, every Jew is dead, and Egypt conquered Israel. So I never forget, my father said, go back to your mother and whisper to her that is not true, that I'm watching the French news, the British, no, the Italian, the British, and the American, and this was one of the biggest victory in 6 days, 5 days.
6 days.
Israel won, and the Egyptians are running in the desert without shoes. I never forget the expression. But that shows you the lie and the propaganda. That every Arab believed that Egypt won, and then to add thing, we heard afterwards that the same Arab, when they discovered the truth, they started breaking the radio to show you who. I mean, it sounds racist or whatever, but just to tell you who we were dealing with, and with all due respect, who are we still dealing with, and how the West is helping these people thrive instead of helping to abolish them or to conquer them.
So you were in the home for a couple of weeks.
Yeah.
And then what happened? I mean, you're still in Libya.
We are still in Libya, yeah. Then they came to us.
Who's
say,
they?
The Arab, the police. And they say, we didn't hear anything about the king, the poor guy. He was very weak. And in fact, in 69, we left in 67. By 69, Gaddafi took over, and the guy was, I think they sent him in exile in Egypt, whatever. The police came to us and said, you have two choices. We either put you in a camp, or you can leave. Oh, because we were so lucky among all this tragedy that sometimes one person can change history. The Italian ambassador to Libya was this wonderful man, I forgot his name, who went and said to the Italian, we have to give refuge to these people. So the police came to us and said, either you stay in this camp, or you go to Italy, and we give you only one suitcase and 30 pounds.
Per person.
So who's going to go to a camp with these people where already we knew that they had murdered and raped and killed Jews, children, adults, and women? So of course we said we take the $30, the 30 pounds sterling they called them, and our bag, and we all went to Rome. Little by little, there was no Jew left in Libya.
So,
everybody went.
So to be clear, today there is no Jew in Libya, is that right?
No.
And as far as you know, there is no trace of Jewish life?
No, they destroyed synagogue, they destroyed cemetery. In fact, there was always somebody who has ideas, and this Libyan Jew decided to have come si dice, a cemetery with the name of all the Jews, virtual, where
cemetery.
everybody can put the name of people who died. My most favorite uncle died 6 months before. They wouldn't, died 6 months before. We weren't even able to do the thing. So
the fact that Jews lived on Libyan soil for 2,000 years has been completely and totally erased, not to mention living Jews, correct?
Absolutely.
Again, a story that very few know. So you arrived in Italy. What happens?
So we arrived in Italy, and this is the difference, you see. And this all, to me, what is happening now with, I know this is not my subject, I'm supposed to talk about just my story, but the story is always a continuation of another story that reminds you of another story. And I'm thinking, okay, we arrived in Libya, in Rome. First of all, we arrived the famous 14 Juillet, the 14th of July, this way I will never forget it. The 16th of July, me and my 3 older sisters, we had a job. And why? And this is the difference. When we arrived, the Sochnut, which is the Jewish agency, that could not touch us in Libya. That's why, if it were not for the Italians, I don't know. Can you imagine at that point you tell them I'm going to Israel? They would have cut your throat immediately. But the Jewish agency was there waiting for us at the airport. And they found us, people like us. I mean, some people, they were smart enough that put some money away. My father was a dreamer, so when we left, we had only 30 sterling and 1 suitcase. So the Sochnut, the Jewish agency, met us and put us in pensions, what they call in pension.
Small hotel.
Small hotel, and like life is funny, whatever. I never forget this pension where we stayed with other Libyan Jews, where we had a big room where 3 families lived, because Sochnut was not so rich, was in the middle of the train station. Now, I don't know how things are now, but there, all the prostitutes will walk around in the train station to try to find a client. And my poor father, he will go out to buy food, and he will say, come on, Juju, come with me. And I said, I don't want to come. And he said, come on, I'm afraid to go alone. But anyway, that is there. So we went there, and then, and this is why I'm not here but I'm so proud of us Jews, honestly. And if anybody wants to call me obnoxious, I don't care. So we had the Sochnut on one hand, and then we had Hayas, the Jewish agency, which by chance, look at destiny, I met my husband because he was working there helping Russian Jews.
But 8 years later.
8 years later. But so what happened while we stayed in Rome, which to me was the best decision in many ways, because if you have to be a girl, young and poor, God bless Rome. It was beautiful. The Italians are nice. They are so, not now anymore, because you know, with all the immigration, every country is becoming a little bit xenophobic. So my father wanted to go to Israel. My mother said, I don't want to go to Israel. Honest to God, too many Jews. That was a philosophy. So what my father, so then we said, let's go to the States, you know, because in Rome there was not, my poor father never was able to walk. And we would never know the truth. My father was going to hire us, to enroll us, to go to the States. He came back and he said, somebody stole all my paper. We would never know if it's true or not, but I'm so grateful to him. I ended up in America. I'm very happy to be in America. I married a man that finally gave me a passport. But as a young person, I was blessed to live in Italy.
And by the way, we should add, speaking of passports,
Oh, no.
they had no passports in Libya.
Oh, my God, yeah.
So just before we leave the subject, were you citizens of a country while you and your family all lived in Libya from generation to generation?
It's very funny. After maybe 10 years ago, I got an Italian passport because of my mother, that she proved that her father. But to show you what the torture we had to go through. So my father was Tunisian, never been to Tunisia, but he had a Tunisian passport. Don't ask me why. And he gave it to all us girls. So for me, even when I met him, I still had, so we decided, I remember, to go to England. He was actually coming to study in Oxford, to come to Oxford, and before that, because we had a car, we said, remember, we're going to stop in Germany and Switzerland and France. So I had to buy the ticket, go to the Tunisian embassy and beg them to put these 4 countries. And again and this is why I'm sorry if I talk too much, but as a woman, it's so revolting. Again, come si dice, they're so, whatever. So I'll go to the embassy, and there was always this guy who even gave me 2 bottles of wine that my mother kept, and after anyway. And he would just leave me there, honest to God, arrive like at 8 o'clock. He will leave me there until 5 or 6 when the embassy closed, and then say, come back tomorrow. At the end, I had to bring my sister boyfriend with me. So the passport was completely useless, and this is what they did. Anyway, sorry.
But just one more funny passport story, and then we're going to move forward. We met in 1975 in Rome, as my wife said, and shortly after, we both wanted to go to Israel, where 2 of her sisters had already made Aliyah. One is a lone soldier and continue to live there. So we went to Israel, and we landed in Israel, and what happens at the passport control?
Oh yeah, I had my Tunisian passport, and you know, I had my Tunisian passport, and by then, you know, you become so democratic, you live in a democracy, you forget. So we arrived there, they let him in with his American passport, they look at my passport and they say, Tunisian, you need a visa. I said, I didn't know. Anyway, they were going to kick me out. By chance, a cousin was there and he let me in. But that is the Jews.
That's the Jewish world. He looked at her passport, it said Boukhobza, and he said something like, are you related to such and such? And before you knew it, the answer was yes. And he turned to the passport control officer and said, let her in. Okay. Okay, so so this is 1975, we meet. 1979, we arrive in America. Juju for the first time in her life, and we decide to live in America. And you're introduced to the American Jewish community. What were your impressions then and now of this entirely new Jewish community?
No, before that, I need
Okay.
to say something. Before that, I need to say something which is very important. All of us who left Libya, I knew all of us, I knew all the Jews. We arrived, 2 days later we start working. We never complained, we never were victims. We, not only we never like to play the victim, but for example, just as an example, I could not finish college because I had to support my family. Not only I don't use it or whatever, but I didn't even want my kids to know it because I felt was my weakness. Our expectation of ourselves were always, you have to do more, you are not a victim, life is tough, work. And this is the difference between us and what I see now and what I see the world like to defend. And what I keep saying is that our victory, like I just talked about my group, my family, my friends, the fact that we fought so hard, we never asked for anything. We went to Italy, we are still grateful to Italy for what Italy did to us, and so many people opened business and gave work to the Italians. So we were never parasite, we added to the country that we went. But what I say, when I see the world around me, the narrative of what's going on, the love, the worship of victimhood, I say to myself, our own personal victory, in a way, is almost a defeat for what is going on now, because people love victims and we refuse to be victims. So this is one point that to me is very important to say. To answer David, you said, oh, so we came to America, and the first thing actually, because at the end your upbringing doesn't let you, your childhood memories, I remember I thought, like my husband will say, oh, I'm Jewish, with Jews, and I remember the same time I married David, and my cousin married a guy from
St. Louis.
St. Louis. And she and I will say, these American Jews, they're so obnoxious. Do you have to say with Jews? Just shut up. Don't let them, because we knew that. So then I started to appreciate it, and and I said, my God, what a beautiful thing to be born so free that you are not just an American, you're a Jew, like a Catholic will say I'm Catholic, like a Buddhist will say I'm a Buddhist, whatever. And then, after October 7, my whole admiration turned in almost, what is the expression? Desperation?
Dismay.
Dismay.
Maybe. Despair?
Despair, brava.
Thank you.
Because this security, this self-force, while to me, my sense of danger never left me because it happened to me, what I noticed that the incredible freedom that the American Jews had, in a way, removed their sense of patriotism, their sense of, not all of them, please, I don't want to offend anybody in this room, their sense of, we are like you, please, like now with Israel, with Gaza. We are, I'm sorry, I don't know what Israel is doing. We are good people. We are, you understand, instead of defending something that should be defended, I find them either on the, come si dice, on the border of it.
The 50-yard line, maybe.
Yeah, or trying to defend the indefensible. This was the question you asked, or I went off? Because you will say that I go.
Believe it or not, this is unscripted. I mean, there were no notes or teleprompters.
Of course.
So again, to fast forward, not only after October 7th, but just maybe a month or two ago, you actually wrote another piece. You haven't written much.
Yeah.
And when you write because it comes from the heart, from the kishkas, we would say in Yiddish, from the gut. You wrote another piece which was published, and maybe El Shaddai will also help distribute that piece, to an American Jewish ex-friend. Why an ex-friend, and why did you choose to write the piece?
I realize that even though by now I'm American, I have an American passport, 3 kids, that they are more American than whatever, my upbringing and the typical American upbringing is very different. I still walk around in this spada di Damocle, come si dice?
The sword of Damocles.
On my head. It happened, it will happen again, even though honestly I didn't think it will happen as bad as it is now. And I find some people that look at what's happening with, what do I say? No, it's not true, it doesn't happen. It's just a small thing in this linear line, and eventually we'll go back to the same line. And I find that it's almost like I'm screaming, there is fire and nobody's listening. I see the fire and the people are too busy, I don't know, discussing something, and they don't see the fire. And it bothers me when it's the United Nations, when it's people like we told you, that you respect Macron, that now decided to give Israel a state. Who the hell is he?
Not Israel, Palestine.
Palestine a state. My only justification is that after that scene where the wife hit him, maybe she hit him too much in the head and something happened. And then sorry. No, because, and then Steimer that first said no, then today I read, he said yes. I mean, who are this country? Why will they decide what's happening? And cosa stavo dicendo degli ebrei?
Why did you write this piece?
Oh, I wrote this piece because I was angry.
Because you had a friend who became a symbol of other friends.
Jewish friends, yeah.
With whom you could not even discuss the fact that you are related through marriage to the Bibas children.
Yeah.
To those beautiful little red-headed children who were murdered, and your so-called friends, right?
Yeah.
Were so uninterested,
that
you couldn't even discuss it with them.
But it's very interesting what is happening now. Something happened to me. You see, I'm surrounded by people that they look at this and they say, this is red. Sorry, people, it's black and it's round. And I'm surrounded by a world, in my opinion, that say, this is red and this is square, okay? And I used to be very, very bothered by it. And then, I don't even know if David knows that. A few weeks ago, all of a sudden, I remember something, and it changed. Honestly, it's changing me, and I hope it stays like this. I remember something that my father told me when I was a teenager. My father was a very mellow, extremely erudite man, married to my mother who was bombastic, and there was only one opinion in her. My mother, come si dice, philosophy was, don't bother with facts, I have my opinion. And that's it. So one day, they had a fight or something, and she was so wrong. So I went there and I said, Papa, how do you deal with her? So he told me, you know what I realized after all this year? If your mother, if the sun is shining and it's beautiful, and the whole city is light by the sun, and your mother tell you there is the moon, don't discuss it. Put your pajama and go to sleep. No, and why do I say that? No, it's serious. Why do I say that? Because in the case of my father, it was for the Pacifica Convivenza.
Peaceful coexistence.
Peaceful coexistence, because he loved her, because they people. In my case, going to sleep, meaning I don't care about what you say, because I realize it's very difficult to fight with people who have the wrong facts and have no desire to learn the truth. They just follow. And I honestly think that to anybody is a waste of time trying to change any. I think personally we have to fight for what we believe. We have to help our people, and just whoever wants to think whatever they can think.
So as we spend the last 10 minutes or so before we go to questions from the audience, on the optimism to pessimism scale, how do you view the future of the United States today?
The future of the, if the United States, that's another thing when I mention all of these people, ex-friends, they look at me like if I'm a lunatic. If the United States, in my opinion, learn from all the mistakes that Europe made, that now put Europe, England, France, Belgium, in such a terrible position, and the people, I don't know how many people realize it when you talk with people. If America doesn't learn from the mistake of Europe, we are done. But I have a feeling that America is seeing things, number one. And you didn't ask that, but if you ask me, of all the world, with all the problem, I am very sure that Israel will survive. Israel will thrive again, because we, as my sister used to say, look where the pharaohs are now and look where we are. Nobody even know who the pharaohs are, you know, in Egypt, and we're still here with our country. What honestly worries me as a Western, as a person who loves European culture, who loves the Judeo-Christian, come si dice?
Tradition.
Tradition.
Thank you.
I am so worried about the Western world. I'm really worried. I think we are at a point, and I saw it in Libya. There was nothing wrong with Libya. Forget that as a Jew, I was a second hand. We were rich, we had everything.
When you say, be careful, not we were rich, we, the family, Libya was one of the wealthiest countries in the world per capita.
I remember studying
small population, huge amounts of oil.
Huge amount, people from all over, British culture, French culture, Italian culture. And then from the outside, Nasser started bringing
the Egyptian president.
The Egyptian president, and look at
Libya today.
Now. And what the world has to understand, and very few understand, that please, this is so true. It starts with the Jews. It does not end with the Jews. In Libya, they started with us. Afterward, the Italian. Now, Libya, this magnificent place, now is a horrible desert. Go and look at all the places where the Jews were removed. Because once a country cannot deal with a minority, any minority, that's it. There is no democracy and everything. So what I'm going to say is that I think Israel is going to make it. I hope to God Europe and the Western world can make it too. I hope.
Juju, when you speak about minorities, I know you wanted to say something about one particular minority, which often gets neglected in Western conversation.
By the way, it's very interesting for all the black people here. When I was raised in Libya, in Tripoli, thank you for reminding me, when my mother used to say, be careful, be careful, be careful. They all hate us, they all hate us. Our old friends are the blacks. And I never understood why. And it's so funny, me and my family, we all have this love, this thing for black people. And I will tell you why. Because the black, you know how the blacks are called in Arabic? Abd. You know what abd is? Slave. Abd. Even in, I see all these black young people in New York fighting for Intifada, for Gaza. Do you know that in Gaza now, and please go and look at it, I'm not inventing it, in Gaza there is an area called Bet el Abid. Abd is the single, Abid is the plural. Okay? There's still, the blacks are still considered second-class citizens. And when my mother told us our only friends are the black, I did not realize what she meant. But what she meant, that the only people there that were disliked, first they were us and then they were the blacks, so we could be friendly together. And how many Americans know that? How many, you understand that there is so many things that the Western world refuse to know, refuse to understand. And if anybody have an answer for this, please tell me.
Well, I'm going to ask one more question. Maybe it's an unfair question. And if so, I'll feel a kick on my shin here in the front. But if you were, for argument's sake, President of the United States for a day, and you had the power to do whatever you wished, knowing everything you know and having told us everything you told us, what would you do?
Well, first of all, everybody will call me a fascist if I have to follow what I will do.
Meaning a dictator?
No, first of all, I will change the whole thing of university. I think we should teach our kids love for country, proud for country. We should be unapologetic of what, like America learned. America, do you realize that we live in a society where we have to be embarrassed to be rich? Like if richness came from the thing, yes, we have few figli di papais, we say in Italian, children born in wealth, but so many people worked hard to create the wealth and they are mistreated. But beside the wealth, why there is so much anti-Americanism from the Americans, which by the way is the same in Italy, in France, in Australia, in Canada. We have to see why this is happening and we have to try to remedy, because these are going to be the future. This is going to be the future of the world, and how can you have a future of people who are defeatist, who are embarrassed of who they are? I will do that. Secondly, and I know maybe lawyers here will not agree with me, I will be much stricter in kicking out people who came illegally. You're telling me what will I do in America?
I don't know the answer.
And I will be very strict of people who are using university to be like, do the Intifada and all this stuff, because we know that these are not innocent students. I was a young girl, I remember I was on the left, I fought for things, but was within our group. This you can see, and thank God for Charles who is showing it things. This we see that this is all prepared, this is all paid for by foreign places that they're trying to do. So, I mean, there are so many people here who know more than me. Just from my question, I will be much stricter.
And maybe just as a final, as you ask your questions, since we're convened by ISGAP, and you've come to know ISGAP the last couple of years, you've been at the Oxford Seminar, and you've seen the larger Jewish landscape through our lives together for 50 years. Where does ISGAP fit into that landscape?
Charles, he wants me to do propaganda for you. Honestly, by the way, God bless ISGAP, because I have to tell you, even and I know this is not politically correct for some people, my husband for 30 years worked for another Jewish organization, American Jewish Committee, and I see that basically they're sleeping at the wheel. I see so many Jewish organizations that they're, I don't know, my feeling is like, we are the good guys. We like Israel, but we don't agree with what Israel is doing. Yes, I know that come si dice, the people, the students are maybe not so good, but we have to defend freedom of speech. We need somebody who's basically, this is it, this is what I believe, and this is where I'm going. We cannot anymore be wishy-washy. Too much is on stake. And interestingly enough, too much is on stake. Israel, I think, can do it by itself. Look, I'm sure they already told Macron and Steinmeier to go to hell. He's telling them, do that before September. Who the hell are you? But anyway, but my point is that the Jewish organization, they should be stronger and to help the Jews here, to give you tools to fight.
So Charles, I think ISGAP has its new logo, the un-wishy-washy organization.
Not the wishy-washy.
The un, right? And I think for all of you, if you remember anything about this conversation, in addition to the substance, you've all learned 3 words in Italian, come si dice, right? We can all repeat together, come si dice, which means, how does one say? So you have an Italian lesson, and a history lesson, and a Jewish lesson, and a geopolitical lesson.
Okay,
Pardon me? And even a little Arabic. So with that, we turn to the audience, please, for El Shaddai, are you going to, so we begin maybe here with Larry and work our way around?
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. I have actually heard, I think this is the 3rd time I've heard the story. I can hear it another 5 times. You are such a wonderful, wonderful presenter, and it's so much from the heart. And you are so out of your league.
I'm so out of my league. Larry, take over. I'll sit there.
I wanted to say the parallels with my family history is my mother was in Auschwitz at the same age as you, went through that in Libya. She was 16, and when she was displaced and sent to Auschwitz. And as a child, I got the same exact thing. We'd come home, we'd say, Mommy, the Irish boys knocked my yarmulke off. And she said, go, kick back, fight them back, fight back, don't put up with them. And we'd come back home next day and say, Mommy, the black kids knocked their yarmulke off. What? Go make friends with them. The blacks are our friends. So that was her thing. She said, the blacks are with us, the blacks are friends. And I got that from a very, very young age from her. And from her experience of that, interestingly, right, from that alliance was always in her heart. And I also want to say that you said that you always carried the sense of insecurity, right? So I will say that, I'm a trauma psychiatrist, so that goes to the next generation. I also always felt unsafe, So, yeah.
He feels like you, unsafe.
Yeah.
I always had that sense from, inherited from her that there's always a sense of looking over your shoulder and being safe. But thank you so much for sharing your heart with us. I really appreciate it.
No, thank you.
I think Lisa. One second, Lisa, because.
Just tell us a little bit about life in Italy as a Jew, not knowing the language, not knowing Italian Western culture. How did that all grow for you? How did that happen?
I'm sorry, I forgot so many things that I have said. As we know, Italy was an Italian colony, and even though it became Libya. was an Italian colony, and by the time 1951, Italy became independent, the Italian schools still stayed there. So we all went to Italian school. So my mother language, my language is Italian. So going to Italy was like being Australian and moving to London, to England. Yeah.
So-
Thank you.
Oh,
How many languages do you speak?
how many languages?
Italian, English, some French, some Arabic. Nothing.
She's being very modest.
It's okay.
4, 5?
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, but this is the thing with Jews. You know that our tragedy made us polylingual, come si dice, polyglot.
Polyglots.
The polyglot Jews is also the Juif Ferrand, the Arab Jew. It goes together.
And funniest of all is to see a Libyan Mediterranean Jew learning Yiddish, which was not remotely part of the culture until she arrived.
Sure.
El Shaddai, where are we here?
El Shaddai.
So please, you take over there. Is that that's Amy?
Hi. What a pleasure to hear you again.
Thank you. Can I talk loud?
Sure. You said, with regard to sexual abuse that you had to deal with as a girl, you said, it's nothing because we knew we could do nothing, which was, to me, one of your most powerful statements. You learned as a girl, it's nothing, and it was nothing, you said, because we knew we could do nothing. And I'm wondering if you could draw that back to your conclusions about the American Jewish community, or I think about the Jewish community throughout much of the West right now. Are we behaving like so much of the anti-Semitism we're contending with is, quote, nothing, because we believe that we can do nothing? I'm just wondering if you could make some parallel comments there.
Yeah, really very good question. We could do nothing because we knew we could do nothing, because we live in a dictatorship, Jews in a Muslim country. What I feel sometimes about some American Jews, I mean, all of those who are here, they're not part of this group, is I never forget once I was having a conversation with actually the husband of a congresswoman, Nita Lowey. You know, she's a congresswoman from New York, a Jew, very, very strong Jew, the wife in Congress, Congress who helped a lot, Israel, etc. She died now. And I was asking him about this, and I was very fascinated by his answer. His answer was not what will happen to the Jews. His answer was, I'm American, this is what I provided to America. It's like they don't think we'll touch them. And you know, history always repeats itself. You know, they tell stories about how many French Jews and German Jews that they thought nothing will touch us. And then when they were in a concentration, some of them, they saw reality and they committed suicide. And I see it happening here. I see the Jew look at what's happening, not from the point of view that I'm anti-Semite, but the point of view, we are powerful. We did so much to this country. We donated, we did that. And this is the difference that I see. You might have another opinion.
I have a number of questions, so I know I will not have a second chance, so I will ask. First of all, yes, I have a friend who is a writer in Israel, and he wrote about Libyan Jews being deported to Auschwitz, and apparently that was a story that very few people knew about it, including myself. I would like to comment on that. Secondly, I think you mentioned several things that are important, and one is, why American Jews sometimes can be indifferent or indifferent, or supporting the other side, not being exactly on our side. And it's very interesting because you and David both are first or second generations. That means David, your father actually suffered Israeli, and you went through anti-Semitism firsthand. And then I see other people in America too, that either they are children of other immigrants or they are more pro-Israel than those who have been several generations in this country. And I wonder whether being American, being so comfortable, eventually there is a competing identity. If the American Jew whose ancestors came at the turn of the 20th century are already in a different stratosphere. I don't know. I would like to hear your opinion. And David, I know you have a lot of experience with this. Sure.
Sì, che lui dice perché...
Parla di tuo padre.
Sì. First of all, about the Jews in concentration camp, we also had camps. They didn't call them concentration camp, but there were camps in Libya. And my poor father, as an anti-fascist, was there for 3 years. And now the truth is coming about what happened in this camp. So the Jews, some were sent to Auschwitz or whatever, and some were also in concentration camp in Libya, and my father was one of them.
But just remember that Libya was colonized and occupied by Italy until it was liberated by the British in 1943. So the fascists had their own camps in Libya, and that's where her father was deported to.
With some other Jews.
Some were deported to Auschwitz.
And some were deported to Auschwitz, yes. Yeah.
Dan from Yad Vashem is saying no,
Not from Libya to Auschwitz.
not directly.
To Bergen-Belsen.
Yeah.
Oh, to Bergen-Belsen, to another of the
My
camps.
parents were at Bergen-Belsen,
And
they
made-
lived in Jew.
Oh, that's almost firsthand. If you didn't hear, his parents were in Bergen-Belsen, and there, as inmates, they encountered Jews from Libya.
There was the Bergen-Belsen an exchange camp with the goal to escape them for Germans from other countries.
Okay,
And
so
because Jews, especially from Benghazi, had historically British citizenship because their ancestors came from Gibraltar. They were taken by the Italians first to Fossoli in Italy, and then when the Germans conquered Italy, they took them to Bergen-Belsen for this purpose.
so we have expert testimony. Then there was the second question.
Yeah, basically you are saying what we are all saying here, that basically some of the Jews, they forgot they are American, they're born American, and this happens, by the way, I always say, I think American Jews are different than any other American, because here they had it so...
Than any other Jew.
Than any other Jew, because here, I mean, in America, love it or leave it, it really was the country of the milk and honey, for not just for the Jews, for so many people, for the Italian, for who made it here. And so once you make it, you forget. And in a way, people like me and like you seem to know, and like David, and I'm happy, not that what happened to us, because it's like gave us, I call it an extra calcium. We have an extra vitamin in our body to fight. We have a vaccine that American Jews don't have. And this is the problem. You see, the American Jews think they don't need the vaccine. And I'm saying, thank God I had this vaccine.
Yeah, and I would just add, because you also mentioned me, for me growing up and being in the Jewish world, someone like Patricia Ullman sitting here in the green shirt was very unusual, because you are what generation? She is fourth and fifth generation American. And in my experience in the Jewish world, it was very unusual to find people who were fourth and fifth generation. If you looked, at least in my generation, at leadership in the organizations, almost all of us were first generation American. And almost all of us were children of Holocaust survivors, or people who had helped defend Israel in the Independence War. it's very different, number one. And number two, I would simply say analytically, I'm not speaking judgmentally, for many American Jews for whom religion became attenuated, weakened, the religion they adopted was, I'll call it tikkun olamism / liberalism. And I'm simply saying it analytically, I'm not saying it judgmentally. And the more Israel, for example, became depicted as an illiberal issue, the more it put them in a dilemma between their liberal identity, which they identified as their Jewish identity. To be Jewish is to be tikkun olamist. So if I'm a liberal / progressive, and Israel today is viewed as an illiberal, non-progressive, or anti-progressive cause, then how do I preserve my self-fashioned identity? And what do I give up in the process? And too often the answer is they give up Israel. Again, that's my non-scholarly but observational approach. Who's next, please?
Hi, Gilad.
Gilad, yes.
My name is Gilad, but my father was Scipione, and he was born in Italy in '33. He was a Holocaust survivor. And when my mom died, after my father died, I found a little manuscript that he wrote in Italian, and I want to read for you one sentence that confirms what you said about the North African rapport with women. He said, sfortunatamente, gli americani lasciarono il posto ad altri eserciti. Vennero i polacchi, poi i marocchini che usavano stuprare, poi sbranare le donne, perfino le donne incinte. So he says here, as Giulietta knows, that after the Americans, the Moroccans came, and I guess they were together with the Americans, but my father saw how they used to rape and tear to pieces women, and eventually he says that he missed the German soldiers. He was a survivor, as I said. So this kind of, what you said, corresponded with some of the things that I read from my father. My question is about victimhood. My father, like you, did not believe in playing the role of the victim. He never took money from the Germans, he never took money from the Italians. He saw parasites as something which is beyond belief, including Jewish parasites, like, for example, he was anti-religious in Israel, as you know. He was anti-parasitic. Now, the question is, and this is kind of a non sequitur, to have this non-parasitic heritage, which I very much adhere to, within the context of anti-Semitism. Because when you talk about anti-Semitism, ipso facto, there is something which is kind of playing the role of the victim. So it's a little bit like my father was a victim, like you were a victim, but we do not like playing the role of the victim. Nobody denies victimhood, but we do not like playing the role. My question is, for example, in Australia where I live, so when people say, oh, look how bad the IDF is, etc. So of course, if you knew how to play with the role of the victim, you say, well, look, I mean, 1,200 people were killed, or raped, or maimed, but I don't like playing the role of the victim. And my question to you is, how do you bridge between this very I mean, you sound like there is a conviction here. I'm not a victim, I'm strong. But on the other hand, when you need kind of for hasbara, etc., you need to actually play the role of the victim. There is a non sequitur, there is a paradox. How do you bridge the two?
I thought I answered that question when I mentioned what my father said. When your mother says night, put your pajama and go to sleep. And in my case, I thought, I mean, David will tell you, he comes home and I will be so angry. In fact, I tell you something what my son did once. But And then I realized you cannot change their mind, because how can you change? It's like taking, I don't know, somebody who all his life was, I don't know, believe in something, and you tell them not to believe. And also it's very, very, very difficult to fight against ignorance. There is an ignorance, there is a brainwashing, there is, how can you fight with somebody who said, I'm so good, I'm so pure, I'm defending the poor, I'm defending the poor Palestinian. And I have two sisters in Israel, and while the whole world now saying, come si dice, they're starving, my sister is sending me pictures. She said, look, these are hundreds, thousands of things of food. The United Nations doesn't want to share them, divide them. We know about how the Hamas kills the people who try to do. The world doesn't want to believe, so I'm going to waste my time to try to change their mind. But you know, there is always, but the truth always come out, like very, very quickly. I used to listen to NPR all my life.
National,
NPR,
for the non-Americans.
That now love him or hate him, God bless Trump decided to remove the money. And for those people who still like NPR, I do apologize. I used to call it my university. I learned so much, but when it comes to politics, they were so biased. And why to say, how do I do that? Why now I reached the point of putting my pajama and going to sleep? Because I fought with this. When I used to pick up my son, I used to listen to NPR. I'm talking about my son in high school. My son is going to be now 40, 20 anni fa, 20 years ago almost. And this
25
is a true
years
story. When I used to, NPR was my Bible. And I will drive, and I see they were so biased against Israel. The lies. And I'll pick up my son, Josh, and I'll tell him in Italian, get into the car. I cannot talk now. Mom, calm down, my friends are watching us. I was so a day later or 2 days later, I go and I realize the kid cannot deal with my anger. He put the station.
He changed the memory.
The memory, because I'm very to the Christian music. So I could listen to Christian music to relax. But why I'm telling you, your question is so valid. How do you put that with victimhood? This is my personal opinion. Ignore them, the hell with them. I don't need them. I need to be strong enough to fight for what is important to me. And they're ignorant, and they're going to be victim of their own ignorance. Because as I told you, it starts with the Jews, and this is so important. It never stopped with the Jews. Look at the world. Look at what happened, Morocco, Libya, Germany. All these people that they killed us, but they didn't gain anything out of it.
By
So
the way,
that's my opinion.
just to add a PS, you may remember a few years ago a very frightening image in Libya along the beach of a group of Christians who were forced to kneel and were blindfolded by Jihadi John, or whatever his name was, with a machete. And they were beheaded, all of them. And to connect the story, I would argue that ISIS first came looking for the Jews, but all the Jews had left by 1967. And when they couldn't find the Jews, they went for the Christians. And that image was seen worldwide. Whether the lesson was absorbed is another question. But they went for the Christians in Libya.
Yeah, but there is something else about Libya which kills me, because nobody cares. The only problem, the Jews, look what happened to the Yazidi, just now, that all Israel had. Do
The
you
Druze.
know, I was reading, because I'm obsessed with the news, so I don't even know if in the Italian news or whatever. In Libya now, there are markets, you know, the poor Africans, they come to go to Europe. In Tripoli, in Libya, there is a market where they sell blacks as slaves. Nobody talks about it. Nobody, it's true, it's proven. Years ago, there was a demonstration in the in the Libyan embassy in London by some black Africans saying, you are selling as a slave. Why nobody talks about it? Why did you understand? What about, come si chiamano, the Druze? Yeah. Look at the Druze. Israel was the only one that saved them. The United Nations, Israel attacked Syria. I mean, you understand what I'm saying? How can one fight against such lies, such, it's so beyond that the only thing to say, the hell with them, and we'll fight for ourselves. That's me.
El Shaddai, I can't see you. Who's next? Please tell us when we have to wrap up. 5 minutes, Charles?
First of all, thank you for sharing your story. I'm my best friend growing up. His mother is a Libyan Jew who also moved to Italy, and I didn't know her story, and this is my best friend from childhood. So it's so important that you're sharing your story. You were talking about how your mother, when this mob was coming, she's pretending like, no, I don't have anything to do with Israel, I don't care about Israel. But of course she cared about Israel, and then when you're watching and hearing the radio shows, she's crying when she's hearing from the Arabic news that Israel's being destroyed. And I guess I'm wondering, what was going on in Israel is causing tremendous pain and suffering for you and your family and the Jews of Libya. And I have a colleague who recently said to me this year, what Israel is doing is tearing American Jewry apart, which was very upsetting to me, right? So I want to understand, and the Libyan Jews are living in Libya for thousands of years. So what is it? Why, it would have also been rational for the Libyan Jews to be angry with Israel for causing them the suffering. Why is that not how you felt, and what can we learn from that to, teach, I guess, our American Jewish brothers and sisters?
For us, Israel was our mother, our father, our uncle, our aunt. For us, Israel was kept us. For us, Israel was the dream to go to, even though we didn't know. And we knew that was the only country we had, even though we had to hide it. Do you know that when I was in school, we could not have, for example, geography books. They came later than any other book because they had to remove the page of Israel. You know, Sophia Loren, she made the movie in Israel. She was not allowed. But the point is, with all of this, we will never, it's like being angry at your mother because she has cancer. You want to help her. And we go back to the gentleman saying that I answered to that lady. The difference is that you cannot be angry at family. Israel was everything for us. The American Jew, not the Jew like you and you and you, for him, America is a country. This is the, forgive me, the insecure Jew, the pampered Jew, these are the Jews that we should educate, but again, this goes to the family. So, no, not even compare us to these people. Thank you.
Charles, I know we're almost out of time, so I'll be very succinct. I think we should also thank your story, I want to say, is our story. Our story is your story.
Oh, you are here. I'm sorry, I couldn't.
That's okay. When you say the only friends we have are the blacks, I would say, on behalf of the blacks, the only friend we have are the Jews.
Oh, really?
The question is, what can we do together to not only hear our stories, but to learn from our stories, so that you use the term worship victimization. I think that's true for all oppressed people. But as a theologian, I believe we should worship God, not worship our social condition. And I think there's a dichotomy between love and hate. Throughout this conference, we are dealing with anti-Semitism, anti-Zionism, anti-Israel hate. I would like to flip it to say, what can we do to love Israel, to love all Semites, to love one another. What can blacks and Jews do to love each other?
No, I believe that there was, I mean, during the, come si chiama quanto gli ebrei hanno aiutato?
In the 60s, the civil rights
During
movement.
the civil rights movement, there was this incredible relationship where the Jews did a lot. And I don't know, honestly, to be honest, it's like for the rest of the people I'm talking to, if you're talking now only about the blacks, they should thought about, for example, the civil movement and not be brainwashed like a lot of the white students about a reality that doesn't exist, that some professors are teaching, or that is very easy to take. With TikTok, you learn history in 3 seconds. This also what were we fighting with. How do we educate these people? How we teach them the truth? You are a professor, you can do more than me. I can always go to a room like this and scream and be angry.
Thank you, but your story helps professors.
No, that would make me very happy.
We have to have something to teach.
Right.
And the question is, we also have something to learn. So hearing your story enables us to be better teachers. Hearing your story will enable us to defy the categorizations. That, you know, the worst thing in the world is to allow your enemy to define who you are.
Thank you.
Some years ago, Ben, there was a spate of arson attacks against African American churches in the United States. Not that it ended, but there was a period. And we asked ourselves, what can we do other than issue thoughts and prayers, which is the default position too often in America today. And we decided to reach out to the Gaze Hill Baptist Church in Millen, Georgia, which was one of the churches. And we went down there and we said, an attack on any house of worship is an attack on every house of worship. And therefore, tell us how we can rebuild this church together, and not just with a check, but with our hands. And I would say one of the answers, Ben, and it's obviously a much longer conversation, is we need to understand that any house of worship is every house of worship, and that we need to help each other not just with a check or thoughts and prayers, but with our hands. And in the process of that, joining hands as a start. Do we have time for one last question, Oshide? Oh, Charles is here. My goodness. I didn't know.
Well, some young people, one of the young people.
Hello, my name is Giovanni. I'm from Australia. And you said, you talked about your experience of being Jewish in the United States as well as in Libya. And in Libya, I want to talk about the environment. And did you ever feel like it was disgraceful to be Jewish in such like a violent environment which hated on Jews? Did you ever feel that way?
No, never. No, never. If you ask any Jew that come from places where Jews are not wanted, you will find we are the biggest, the strongest Jews. Unfortunately, Jews lose all their Judaism where they live too much in freedom. I hope not okay. If you think about it. No, to answer you now, we always felt proud.
Giovanni, as I came to understand, it's a totally different Jewish identity. And I just want to offer one example. When our eldest son had his bar mitzvah, my mother-in-law came from Rome. And we had the bar mitzvah in a liberal synagogue. And when the ark, for those of you who are familiar with synagogue, when the ark was opened, which houses the Torah scrolls, my mother-in-law rushed into the ark and embraced the Torah scrolls with such love and tears. And the liberal rabbi, who had been a rabbi all his life, said, I've seen Jewish, I've never seen such Jewish before. It's a very different starting point to understand identity, which is also to your point, Rona. Zionism is non-negotiable. Judaism is non-negotiable. For too many American Jews, it's all negotiable. It's an a la carte menu. For them, I say this as someone who, she married me and I married her family. It's an identity I didn't understand before, but it's head to toe, toe to head, 24/7, with no interruption, no apology, no hesitation. And I think, frankly, many of the rest of us Jews have a lot to learn, not just from the story, but from the example.
And the blacks and the whites.
On behalf of everybody here, really thank you both very much. Thanks for your wisdom and your experience. And the non-negotiable perspective of the Harris team. Very important to hear. And also I want to thank you guys for engaging. My colleagues and I would say this is one of the best groups that we have. And I know I told you at the beginning, you guys make the Summer Institute, and it's really impressive. You're an impressive group, if I dare say. Apropos, Larry Amsel, Professor Larry Amsel, you now know from Columbia, is running a program today. He's going to explain in 30 seconds what it is.
Charles' 30 seconds and mine are slightly different. So right after, literally weeks after 10/7, Charles set up a kind of a war room in New York, where many of us gathered to see what can ISGAP do, how can we respond. And I sat with Charles and I said, Charles, what can I do? And he said, you're a psychiatrist, why don't we run a resilience group where people can come and they can talk? So ever since literally, I don't know, a month after that, we started this resilience group. So it is an online group for faculty. Students are also welcome. It continues to meet, and I want to thank also, who couldn't be here, Steve Sussman, who is my co-runner of that, very much equal partner in running this resilience group. So we meet once a week online. So if you look at your program, you'll see that it almost looks like it ends on this page. But then if you turn it over, you might go right to Thursday. But there is a optional program at 8 o'clock, in which anybody who wants to come, we get together and we talk about, introduce you to what the resilience group is, and we talk about the resilience group. But it's, number one, it's totally optional. I understand it's the end of a long day. I am not offended if anybody doesn't want to come. You're absolutely welcome. Yeah, 8 o'clock tonight. So you'll see it's kind of on the other page of your program. So it's 8 o'clock tonight. So the way to handle this is to go get something to eat, come back, bring the food. Where does it meet?
It's here.
It meets here. So it's going to meet here. And I'm going to take the prerogative of the first 15 minutes of that. I'm going to talk about a little bit of a theoretical take on what happened at Columbia and how it happened. So I'll take a few minutes to talk about that, and then we'll talk about the group. You can come, and again, completely voluntarily. You can come late, come early, leave late, and bring food, whatever you like. Thank you so much.
I should just say that this group, it's really, what Larry and Steve has done is amazing. And I know everybody's, the group has been meeting once a week since soon after October the 7th. And after the assassinations of these two Israeli embassy workers in DC, we decided to have a session the day after they were murdered. And we announced it within, I think, 2 hours before the session started. 45 minutes before the session. Zahava was instrumental in putting together, and it was over like 117 people, a couple hours notice, were there and really engaging in a very powerful conversation. So Larry, thanks for all your efforts. It's an amazing group, so I hope you can get a taste of it tonight with Larry. So we have only 20 minutes for our tea break, so please enjoy it, and please come go to your sessions at 11:30.